All right, let's dive in. Wild weather across the U.S. right now, December 14th, 2024, and things are getting interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how much is going on across the country.
Definitely. We've got a ton of sources for this deep dive, by the way. USA Today, CNN,
Local news from Texas, Louisiana. Even found an article in Arabic.
international perspective. Always good to have that. So let's get right to it. What's standing out to you? What's making headlines?
Well, I mean, got to start with the San Francisco tornado warning.
Oh yeah, San Francisco. Tornado warning.
First time ever, apparently.
Can you even imagine a tornado in San Francisco?
Right. It's pretty unusual. California in general doesn't get a lot of tornadoes.
Yeah, and San Francisco. Right on the bay. Doesn't seem like tornado territory.
The geography just, it doesn't usually line up for that.
So what's happening? Is this storm just like a total fluke?
Well, this storm system, it's a powerful one, moving across the country, bringing a lot of moisture with it, a lot of instability.
On the West Coast, that means.
Heavy rain, strong winds, yeah. But there are some signs that it could be strong enough to produce tornadoes.
I was reading about that. USA Today mentioned that the National Weather Service spotted a hook echo on the radar near San Francisco.
Interesting.
Is that a sure sign of a tornado?
Well, it can be. A hook echo, it's a specific shape that you see on the radar sometimes when a thunderstorm is rotating.
Literally looks like a hook.
Yeah, and that rotation, that's one of the key things you need for a tornado to form. So when meteorologists see that hook echo, they start paying very close attention.
So this isn't just like a theoretical thing. There's actually been damage in San Francisco, right?
Yeah. The SF Chronicle reported like an 83-mile-per-hour wind gust at SFO Airport.
Wow.
Second strongest ever recorded there. And there have been reports of downed trees, some falling on cars.
Crazy.
Still being investigated whether an actual tornado touched down, but no doubt that this storm has brought some pretty crazy weather.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm curious, have we ever seen a tornado warning this far south in California?
This is probably the first time a tornado warning has ever been issued for San Francisco itself.
So definitely significant, even if it doesn't end up actually forming.
Yeah, it just shows how unpredictable these storms can be, what kind of unexpected impacts they can have.
Okay. So we've got this potent storm system moving across the country, bringing all sorts of weird weather with it.
Yeah?
I keep hearing about this atmospheric river fueling the storm. What is that exactly? What is an atmospheric river?
It's think of it as a river of moisture in the atmosphere.
Okay.
It's these narrow bands, concentrated water vapor, and they can transport huge amounts of water from the tropics to, higher latitudes like the West Coast.
So when that atmospheric river hits land,
It can dump a ton of rain, like incredible amounts of rain in a short period of time.
like a fire hose.
Yeah, kind of. That's a good analogy.
Ah.
And this one. This one's especially strong. So that's why we're seeing all this intense rainfall, all the potential for flooding.
And it's not just San Francisco, right? This is impacting.
It's all of northern and central California. Heavy rain, potential flooding. USA Today's got a good overview of that.
Yeah.
The SF Chronicle's warning about high surf and coastal flooding. Beaches are no-go zones right now. And if you're in the Sierra Nevada mountains, up to 3 feet of snow.
Wow. Tornadoes, floods, blizzards.
All at the same time.
It's, it's pretty wild. It's like a greatest hits of extreme weather.
It's a good reminder of how powerful, how diverse nature can be. And we'll talk about this later, but, this is all happening against the backdrop of climate change. As another layer to all of this.
Yeah, definitely want to get into that. But first, let's switch gear. Let's talk about what's happening on the other side of the country.
Yeah, because while the West Coast is getting drenched, the East Side's facing a whole different winter challenge.
I was just reading about that. Ice storms, right? Midwest getting hit hard.
Yeah, especially the Midwest. Ice storm warnings in Iowa. Travel's going to be a mess.
It's crazy how one storm system can create such drastically different conditions.
Yeah, that's the nature of weather systems, though. They're constantly evolving, interacting with the atmosphere, and that creates, well, all sorts of impacts as they move across the country.
So this ice storm, why is freezing rain so dangerous? It seems less threatening than a blizzard,
It can actually be more dangerous in many cases. When snow falls, it's pretty light and flucky. It doesn't tend to build up as much on surfaces.
Right.
Freezing rain, though, it starts as rain, but it falls through this layer of freezing air near the ground. And when those supercooled raindrops hit something below freezing, bam, instant ice.
So it's like coating everything.
Yeah, exactly. And it can build up really fast, making roads super slippery. Trees, power lines, snap under the weight.
USA Today mentioned Omaha streets turning into hockey rinks.
Yeah, saw that.
Even walking becomes dangerous.
Oh, yeah. You slip and fall in a heartbeat. And this isn't just a small area either. Winter weather advisories are out from the upper Midwest all the way to the mid-Atlantic.
So, big chunk of the country dealing with this.
Yep. A lot of potential for icy conditions right now.
Starting to feel a bit chilly just thinking about it.
Chuckles.
Yeah.
But, it's not a winter wonderland everywhere.
Right. We were looking at some of the other reports.
While some areas are dealing with ice, other places are actually enjoying above average temperatures.
Yeah. USA Today mentioned the South, Texas, Florida. Unseasonably warm.
And even the desert Southwest is warmer than usual.
I saw a story from local news in Abilene, Texas. They're dreaming of a white Christmas, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Long-range forecasting is always a bit tricky, especially this far out. Lots of variables.
Okay.
So white Christmas in Abilene, possible, but probably not going to happen.
Okay. So just to recap, this one storm system is causing potential tornadoes in San Francisco, ice storms in the Midwest, Andy, balmy weather in the South.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
It really highlights how interconnected our weather systems are and how important it is to stay informed, be prepared for all sorts of conditions.
For sure. And I think we've got to talk about that climate change connection at some point.
Definitely. We'll dive into that next. Stay tuned. Back to the show. Let's talk about that climate change connection.
Yeah, we were going to get into that. All this crazy weather. Gotta ask. Is climate change playing a role here?
Well, it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
But the science is getting clearer. A warmer planet, it's leading to more extreme weather events, more frequent, more intense.
So it's not just things getting hotter overall.
Right. It's messing with the weather patterns, making them less stable, more volatile. Like, imagine climate change as loading the dice,
Yeah.
making those extreme events more likely.
Okay. Gotcha. But how does that actually work? How does it play out?
Well, think about the heavy rains in California. USA Today mentioned mudslides, debris flows, right?
Yeah, they said the risk is higher in places that have had wildfires recently.
Right. And wildfires, those are also becoming more common because of climate change. Drier conditions, higher temperatures.
So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly. You get wildfires, then the heavy rains come, and suddenly you've got a recipe for mudslides.
Climate change is making the impacts of these storms even worse.
Exactly. Amplifying them. And it's not just about the immediate danger either. That article in Arabic we mentioned,
Yeah.
it talked about the long-term stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How these events mess up ecosystems, agriculture, infrastructure.
It's kind of scary when you think about it. All those
I
ripple
suppose.
effects. So what can we do? Does understanding the climate connection, does that actually help?
It's crucial, actually, for a couple of reasons. One, it helps us predict these events better, prepare for them.
Okay.
If we know a warmer planet is making intense rainfall more likely, we can build things to handle it.
Like better drainage systems?
Yeah. Early warning systems for flash floods, things like that.
Makes sense.
And two, knowing about the climate link, it helps us make better decisions
Yeah.
about how to adapt, how to slow things down.
Like reducing emissions.
Right. If we reduce greenhouse gases, we can slow down the warming, maybe even reduce how intense these extreme events get.
Knowledge is power. Right.
Absolutely. The more we know about climate change, the more we can actually do something about it.
Okay. So we've got climate change making the weather more wild. But let's talk about this specific storm system again, the one that's causing all this across the country right now. It's just, I'm still amazed by how different the weather is on opposite sides of the U.S.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to this low-pressure system moving across the country. Think of it like a giant whirlpool in the air. That's basically what a low-pressure system is.
But a whirlpool just spins in one place, right? How does it move across the country?
Right. Good question. The Earth's rotation, differences in air pressure, those things make these systems move, usually west to east here in the mid-latitudes.
Okay.
Now, on the west side of the low, it's sucking in warm, moist air from the Pacific Ocean.
Hence the heavy rain, strong winds in California.
Exactly. But on the east side of the low, it's pulling down colder, drier air from the north.
So same system, different air.
Yeah. And when that cold air hits the moisture coming from the south, that's when you get the perfect conditions for freezing rain, ice storms.
It's like two sides of the same coin, basically. Same system, totally different weather depending on where you are.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And up in the mountains, the Sierra Nevada, CNN was talking about 3 feet of snow. What kind of impact does that have?
Well, it's It's a mixed bag. It's great for skiers, snowboarders, good for replenishing water supplies.
Right.
But it also comes with risks. Avalanches, for example.
Yeah, with 3 feet of snow, I was thinking about that.
It's a real concern, especially if it falls quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Sierra Nevada either. USA Today mentioned heavy snow in the coastal ranges too.
So people need to be careful if they're heading to the mountains.
Definitely.
Okay, back to those winter weather advisories. Covering a huge part of the country, we talked about Omaha earlier, streets turning into hockey rinks.
Yeah, it's no joke. Freezing rain can really mess things up. Transportation, power outages, just getting around becomes really risky.
And it's not just personal safety, right? There are economic impacts too.
Oh, absolutely. Businesses close, supply chains get disrupted, can get really expensive to clean up and repair everything.
Yeah, crazy how these weather events can have such a big impact. But hey, not all doom and gloom. We were talking about some places with above average temperatures too, right?
Right. Easy to forget when we're
Uh,
focused on the extremes, but
Hmm.
the storm's not bringing winter everywhere.
Remember that story from Abilene, Texas? They were hoping for a white Christmas.
Yeah, but it's not looking likely.
Long-range forecasting is tricky.
It is. A lot of uncertainty, especially weeks or even months out, like trying to predict the future.
So Abilene might be better off planning for sunshine for now.
Probably a safer bet, yeah.
It's good to remember that even with all this crazy weather, there's still,
There's still some good stuff out there.
exactly, it's all about perspective. The storm's causing some problems, but it's just a snapshot.
And that bigger picture includes climate change, like we talked about.
Right. So as we wrap up this part of the show,
Important to remember that. We're seeing weather patterns shifting all over the world. These extremes are becoming more common, more intense.
and that means we need to be prepared.
Exactly. Understanding the risks, adapting, doing what we can to slow things down. That's how we build a more resilient future.
Well said. Speaking of resilience, we still need to talk about those coastal flooding warnings in California.
Oh, yeah. The SF Chronicle made it sound pretty serious.
Ready to dive into that next?
Absolutely. Coastal areas are really on the front lines of climate change. Important to understand what's happening there.
All right, let's get back to those coastal impacts we were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Coastal areas, they're especially vulnerable to climate change, and we're seeing that right now in California.
The SF Chronicle had some pretty alarming stuff about high surf coastal flooding warnings, even mentioned erosion and damage to infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a recipe for trouble. High tides, storm surge, those powerful waves from the storm.
So it's not just the water level rising, it's the force of the waves hitting the coast.
Exactly. And those waves, they can erode beaches, damage buildings, even flood low-lying areas.
The SF Chronicle said beaches are no-go zones right now. Surfers are probably disappointed.
Oh, I bet. But those warnings are there for a reason. The ocean is powerful, not worth messing with in these conditions.
So you've got the immediate threat from the storm surge and the waves, but then there's the long-term threat of rising sea levels, too.
Yeah, that's the big one, the underlying issue. Sea levels are going up. That puts coastal areas at even greater risk.
And this isn't just a California problem, right? This is happening all over the world.
Oh, absolutely. All over the world. Island nations, big cities, everyone's feeling it.
It's a reminder that climate change isn't something way off in the future. It's happening now.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's impacting our lives in very real ways.
So what can we do?
Well, we have to address it. We need to invest in protecting our coasts, reduce emissions, and support communities that are already being impacted.
Okay, so we've talked tornadoes, ice storms, flooding, coastal erosion. What else does December have in store for us?
Hard to say. Mother Nature always has a few surprises up her sleeve, but I think the big takeaway from this deep dive is how different the weather is across the country.
It's wild, right? California's getting drenched. Texas and Louisiana are enjoying warm weather. 2 different seasons at the same time.
And that kind of variability, we can expect to see more of that as climate change continues to impact weather patterns, more extremes, more unpredictable events. We're going to have to be ready for it.
So if you had to pick one thing for our listeners to remember from this, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing is to remember that we live on a dynamic planet. Things are changing. We need to change with them. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into this wild December weather.
It's been a pleasure.
We covered a lot of ground today. Tornadoes, ice storms, the climate connection. Hopefully it gave everyone some food for thought.
Absolutely. And remember, every storm, every snowflake, every sunny day is a chance to learn more about our incredible planet.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and questions with us on social media. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, stay safe and stay weather aware.